They didn't leave. Not officially. Not publicly. Not in any way the headlines would ever confirm. And yet they're gone. The penthouses are still lit. The supercars are still parked. The champagne still flows in rooftop lounges, overlooking a skyline that refuses to blink. But the billionaires, they've gone silent. Dubai was never supposed to feel like this. Not this quiet. Because silence was never part of the design. For years, Dubai wasn't just a city. It was a signal. A signal that capital could escape gravity. A signal that wealth could move faster than borders. A signal that if you built something extravagant enough, money would come, no questions asked. And for a while, it did. But now something doesn't add up. The lights are still on. The music is still playing. The skyline still sells the illusion of unstoppable momentum. Yet behind the glass, something has slowed down. Not collapsed. Not crashed. Just paused. Before we peel back what's really happening beneath the surface, make sure you subscribe, because this channel is built for one thing: seeing what others miss. Because to understand why the billionaires went silent, you first have to understand what Dubai actually is. Dubai is often described as a miracle, a city that rose from sand into steel, a place where ambition isn't just encouraged, it's engineered. But that description is incomplete, because Dubai isn't just a city. It's a system built on movement, not stability, not permanence. Movement. Capital flows in. People flow in. Opportunity flows in. And just as quickly, they can flow out. This is where the illusion begins. Because on the surface, Dubai looks permanent. The skyscrapers don't move. The artificial islands don't drift away. The infrastructure feels anchored. But the foundation is anything but. Unlike traditional economic centers, places like New York City or London, Dubai was never built on deep-rooted domestic demand or generational wealth cycles. It was built on attraction, on magnetism, on being the most convenient place in the world for money that doesn't want to stay anywhere too long. No income tax, minimal regulation, luxury without friction, a place where wealth could exist quietly. And for a certain class of people, the ultra-mobile, ultra-wealthy elite, that was irresistible. Because Dubai didn't just offer luxury. It offered distance. Distance from scrutiny. Distance from instability. Distance from wherever they came from. So they came. From Russia. From Europe. From Asia. From everywhere capital felt uncertain. They didn't just invest. They parked their wealth. Real estate surged. Luxury retail exploded. Private banking flourished. And Dubai became something more than a city. It became a vault. But here's the part no one talks about. A vault only works if people trust it. And trust, unlike buildings, is invisible and fragile. Because Dubai's success was never about what it had. It was about what it represented. A safe zone, a neutral ground, a place untouched by the fractures of the world. But what happens when the world starts leaking in? What happens when geopolitical tensions don't stay contained? When sanctions redraw financial pathways? When scrutiny follows money across borders? When neutral becomes questionable? You don't get an explosion. You don't get headlines screaming collapse. You get something far more subtle. You get silence. The kind of silence where deals stop closing, but no one announces it. Where penthouses sit untouched, but never listed. where capital doesn't vanish. It just stops arriving. And that's the paradox. Because if you flew into Dubai today, nothing looks wrong. Flights are landing. Hotels are full. The skyline is as perfect as ever. You could walk through downtown and believe the story is still intact. But beneath that perfection, the rhythm has changed. And the people who feel it first are the ones who built the system. The ones who understand that Dubai doesn't run on oil anymore. It runs on perception. And perception is starting to shift. This is where most analyses stop. They point to global conflicts, to economic slowdowns, to temporary disruptions. And they say, this is just a phase. But that explanation is too shallow. Because what we're seeing isn't just a reaction. It's a signal that something deeper, something structural, is beginning to strain. Because when billionaires panic, they don't make noise. They move quietly. And when they stop moving altogether, that's when you should start paying attention. In the next layer, we're going to break the illusion completely. We'll trace the exact forces, geopolitical, financial, and systemic, that are reshaping the flow of global wealth, and why Dubai might not be as untouchable as it once seemed. The silence didn't start in Dubai. It started thousands of miles away. In boardrooms, in war rooms, in places where decisions are made that never appear on tourism ads. Because the first crack in Dubai's illusion was never internal. It was imported. When the Russia-Ukraine war began, the world focused on tanks, territory, and sanctions. But money told a different story. Sanctions didn't just freeze assets. They redirected them. Suddenly billions, no, trillions of dollars needed new homes, safe jurisdictions, flexible systems, places that asked fewer questions. And for a moment, Dubai became the obvious answer. Russian capital surged in. Luxury real estate spiked. Private jets filled the airspace. Dubai wasn't slowing down. It was accelerating. But acceleration can be deceptive, because not all growth is stable. Some of it is reactive. And reactive growth doesn't build foundations. It builds pressure. At the same time, something else was happening. Quietly, systematically, global regulators were watching. Institutions like the Financial Action Task Force began increasing scrutiny on financial flows. Questions started forming. Where is this money coming from? Where is it going? And why is it all moving through the same channels? Dubai, once praised for its openness, was suddenly being examined for it. In 2022, the UAE was placed on the FATF gray list. Not a blacklist, but not clean either. That distinction matters. Because in global finance, perception is everything. Being graylisted doesn't shut you down. It slows you down. Banks become cautious. Transactions become slower. Due diligence becomes heavier. And for the ultra-wealthy, people who value speed and discretion above all else, friction is unacceptable. So they adapt. Not loudly, not dramatically, but strategically. They diversify.
This is 1080p,
They reroute.
60 frames per second.
They fragment their assets
with
across
rocksteady
multiple jurisdictions. And most importantly,
Currently we are in
they stop
Sheikh Zayed
concentrating.
in Dubai.
This is where Dubai begins to feel the shift. Not because money is leaving in waves,
During the lockdown.
but because it's no longer choosing to stay. At the same time, Western governments intensified financial surveillance, not just on individuals, but on entire networks. The era of anonymous wealth was ending. And Dubai's biggest advantage, its neutrality, started becoming a liability. Because neutrality only works when no one questions it. But now everyone was. Add to that rising global interest rates, liquidity tightening across markets, capital becoming more expensive. Suddenly, the easy money that fueled Dubai's explosive growth wasn't so easy anymore. And here's the key insight most people miss. Dubai doesn't just depend on wealth. It depends on mobile wealth. The kind that can leave overnight. The kind that doesn't have roots. The kind that doesn't care about long-term stability. Only short-term advantage. That's a dangerous dependency. Because mobile capital behaves differently. It doesn't crash markets. It evaporates from them. And when it does, it leaves behind something unsettling. Infrastructure without intensity. Luxury without liquidity. Presence without participation. This is why the silence feels so strange. Because nothing is visibly broken. Yet something is clearly missing. High-end property transactions begin to plateau. Off-market deals become quieter. Developers continue building, but with less conviction. It's not fear. Not yet. It's hesitation. And hesitation is the first stage of withdrawal. Meanwhile, Dubai continues to project strength. New projects are announced. Mega developments are unveiled. The narrative remains intact. Growth is inevitable. But narratives don't move markets. Money does. And money is becoming more selective, more cautious, more distributed. This is the second layer of the illusion. Dubai didn't just grow because it was attractive. It grew because it was convenient. Convenient for capital in transition. Convenient for wealth in motion. Convenient for those who needed a temporary center of gravity. But convenience has an expiration date. Because as soon as alternatives appear, as soon as pressure increases, as soon as scrutiny rises, convenience becomes risk. And risk is something the ultra-wealthy are trained to avoid. So they don't announce their exit. They don't trigger panic. They don't crash the system. They simply stop engaging with it. And that's exactly what silence is. Not absence, but disengagement. At this point, you might be thinking, so what? Money shifts all the time. And you'd be right. But what makes this different isn't the movement itself. It's what that movement reveals. Because if Dubai's growth was built on continuous inflow, what happens when inflow becomes inconsistent? If the system depends on constant attraction, what happens when attraction weakens? And more importantly, if the people who understand this system best are the ones going quiet, what do they see that others do? In the final layer, we go deeper than geopolitics, deeper than capital flows. We break down the architecture of Dubai's model itself and ask the uncomfortable question, was this ever meant to last? Because what you're about to see isn't just about Dubai. It's about a blueprint, a model that cities around the world are trying to replicate. And if that model is starting to crack, the implications go far beyond one skyline. Dubai doesn't collapse the way other cities do. It doesn't burn. It doesn't riot. It doesn't unravel in public. If it fails, it will do so quietly. Because Dubai was never designed as a traditional economy. It was designed as a platform for capital, a platform for status, a platform for temporary advantage. And platforms follow different rules. They don't need permanence. They need participation. As long as people show up, The system works, but the moment participation slows, everything changes. This is the layer no one talks about, because it's not visible in skylines. It's not measurable in tourism numbers. It exists beneath all of it. Dubai's real economy is not what you see. It's what moves. Short-term residents, rotating wealth, transient elites. Unlike cities built over centuries, where families, institutions, and industries anchor economic activity, Dubai operates on non-permanence. The majority of its population is expatriate. Not just workers, but consumers, investors, tenants. They don't stay for generations. They cycle through. And that creates a very specific type of economic
This
structure.
is 1080p,
One that must
60 frames
constantly
per
replace
second
itself.
with a rock
New residents
steady
must replace
and able.
old ones. New money must replace
Currently
old
we are
money.
in Sheikh Zayed
New
in
demand
Dubai,
must replace fatting
the
demand.
famous business district
Every year,
here in this kingdom.
Every cycle, every shift in
during
global
lockdown.
conditions. This isn't growth. This is maintenance disguised as expansion. And it works until it doesn't. Because when the inflow slows, there is no deep domestic layer to stabilize the system. No large-scale internal consumption to absorb the shock. No entrenched capital that is forced to stay. No structural inertia. Only movement. And movement, by definition, can stop. This is the hidden vulnerability. Dubai doesn't need a crisis to destabilize. It only needs a pause. A pause in capital inflows. A pause in new residents. A pause in global confidence. That's enough. Because everything you see, the towers, the islands, the luxury districts, they are built on expectations of future demand, not current necessity. Which means the system is always slightly ahead of itself, always projecting forward, always assuming continuation. But what happens when the future becomes uncertain? Developers don't stop building immediately. Banks don't panic overnight. Investors don't withdraw all at once. Instead, they hesitate. Projects get delayed. Deals take longer. Margins shrink. And slowly, momentum fades. This is how systems like this weaken. Not through shock, but through erosion. Now layer this onto what we've already uncovered. Geopolitical tension, financial scrutiny, mobile capital becoming cautious. And suddenly, the structure starts to look fragile, not because it's failing today, but because it depends entirely on tomorrow. Dubai is in many ways a bet that global wealth will always need a place like it, a bet that capital will always seek neutrality, a bet that perception can be maintained indefinitely. But bets can be wrong, and when they are, they don't announce themselves. They reveal themselves slowly. In data no one headlines. In silence no one explains. In patterns only a few recognize. This is why the billionaires went quiet. Not because Dubai is collapsing, but because they understand something deeper. The system they're participating in is no longer as predictable as it once was. And unpredictability is the one thing they don't tolerate. So they adjust. They redistribute. They hedge. And most importantly, they wait. Because waiting is power. While the rest of the world watches skylines and headlines, they watch flows. And right now, those flows are changing. So what does that mean for Dubai? It means the city enters a new phase. Not collapse, not decline, but something far more uncertain. Transformation. a transformation that may not be visible immediately, but will define everything that comes next. Because if Dubai can no longer rely on constant inflow, it has to become something else, something more grounded, more internally sustained, less dependent on movement. But that's not a simple transition. It requires rewriting the very model that built it. And that raises the final question, the one no one in the promotional videos will ever ask. If Dubai was built to attract the world's most mobile wealth, what happens when that wealth stops needing it? What replaces it? And more importantly, what replaces the idea of it? If you want deeper breakdowns like this, where we go beyond headlines and into the systems shaping the world, subscribe and join the conversation. Because the next phase of global wealth isn't going to be loud. It's going to be quiet. And the people who understand that first will be the ones who move first.